Okay, so today we'll be doing a traditional stringing pocket tutorial. This is going to be catered to a classic pocket, like this one here I have in this Under Armour Command. So a classic pocket, so it's going to be going up, and down. Okay, so this tutorial shouldn't be too difficult to follow. Really, the main thing is just that you're watching out for your tensioning when you're doing your traditional pocket, because the tensioning is really what will decide if the pocket ends up being good or not over the course of time. So it's very important that you get your tensioning down. It usually takes a couple of tries to get down perfectly, or get down as well as you can, that is. Okay, so you'll need a couple of materials to get everything done. For starters, for your tools, you might need a pair of needle-nose pliers. You'll need a lighter and a pair of scissors. You might want a Tradici style device. This is one I made out of wood a little while ago. And here's one that my friend 3D printed. There's different styles you can get, but on the Tradici website, there's a couple that you can pick out. That's going to be easier if you've never strung a traditional pocket before, but I just have these because I know exactly what I'm looking for when I'm stringing a traditional pocket anyways. For the actual materials, you're going to need 4 leathers. You can do any color you want. Doesn't really matter. I have these stitched leathers, which have this orange and navy blue stitching down the middle of the leather. Kind of give it a little bit more structure. Really nice and stiff. You're going to need at least 2 sidewall strings. Here I have 3 because I'm going to be doing a top string on this specific stick, but you don't need to have 2. You can just run your leathers through the top of the head if you want to do that instead. But I'm going to be using a top string with this one, and also going to use the other 2 sidewalls, or the other 2 sidewall strings for the actual sidewalls on the pocket. And for the centerpiece of the pocket, you're going to need to use some cross lace. I have 2 different colors here because I'm going to be using 2 different colors in this specific pocket. Now it's important that you get actual cross lace and not sidewall string. Now you could use sidewall for your pocket, but I would not recommend it. The cross lace is going to be thinner. It's going to be easier to string around with and weave with. Essentially, it's not going to be as rough as the sidewall string as well. So if you can, I'd highly recommend that you get cross lace. Okay, so since I'm going to be doing a top string for this specific tutorial, what we're going to be doing next is this kind of little loop here, as you can see. It's important that you have the smooth side of the leather facing forward, or where it's going to be touching the ball, and the rough side facing the opposite side of the stick. So let's go ahead and get into this next part. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into this little leather loop here, what we're going to do to start off the pocket. Now here I have my first leather. It's got the smooth side of the leather facing forward, which is going to be the ball, or which is going to be what's touching the ball. And I have the rough side facing the opposite side, so facing, or not going to be touching the ball. And at the top of the leather, you're going to have 2 little slits in your leather. So you can see I have these pre-cut slits. Most leathers will come with these. Depending on where you get them from, you might have to cut them yourself, so be careful. You'll probably have to use like an X-Acto blade because these can be kind of difficult to cut. But mine's already has these pre-cut, so it makes it easier for me. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and fold the back of the leather around my finger. And you're going to take the opposite end of the leather and you're going to go up and through the bottom slit. Find that. So here's my bottom slit and then here's my top slit. It's kind of hard to see because it's a thin cut, but we're taking our leather and we're going to go from the back and through of it. So here you can see I had this little loop up here. And then this was that end piece with the leathers, or with the slits in the leather. And so I went through that first loop, and now I'm going to take my leather and go up and through the back of that second loop. And while doing this, I have the smooth side facing away from me, and I have the rough side facing towards me. And then that's just going to come through. And so here we can stop and kind of dissect it a little bit. So here I have it, the leather looped around itself, or it looped around itself and went through the rough side, and it comes out and then goes out and through the rough side again. So you should have this section here where the top of this loop piece is smooth, and then below that we have a rough side, and then we have the rest of the leather will be smooth, because that's what we want the side of the ball to touch. All right, I'm gonna do it on the top of this head. because it might be a little bit easier to demonstrate. But here we have the smooth side of the leather facing towards me, the rough side facing outwards, and I have the 2 leather slits on the top of the leather here. So we're going to go into one of the top string holes, and I'm going to fold the leather down. And then so here we can see we have one slit and then another one. And then we're going to take our leather, and then on this side that's facing towards us or that's closer to us, we're going to go through the slit that's closer to the scoop. So you can see we're going to pull this a little bit tighter here. And then so I'll loosen it just a little bit. So you can see it's just looping and going back into itself. And I like to tighten this up. All right, so and then we're still going to have that lower loop here that's going to be left over. As you can see, it's kind of hard to see actually. We're going to take our leather, and then from taking this longer piece from the inside, we're going to go through the back of this slit. And then it just gets pulled through. And there shouldn't be really any sort of like crazy twist or anything going on back here. It should be perfectly smooth. And then this is just going to come through, pull that, and you can see on the side. So it kind of just loops over itself and then goes back and through. And then that's the way you would do it if you weren't doing a top string. Obviously you'd want to tighten this up a little bit so it's not loose like this. But this is just a different demonstration as well. You're doing the same thing if you're doing a top string, it's just you're not doing it into the plastic of the head. All right, now actually before you attach your leathers to the head, be it with a top string or without, what you want to do is stretch your leathers. I don't really need to stretch these because these ones are stitched, so I know they won't break. But if you don't have stitching in your leathers, you just have traditional leathers, then you're going to want to stretch them out to make sure that it's not going to break when you actually go out to play with it, because that would be a pretty bad situation if you spend a bunch of time stringing traditional and your first shot or pass, it ends up just snapping in the pocket. So you're just going to stretch these at different parts of the leather. Spend a good amount of time doing this. Make sure you get all of them. And when you're actually putting them in your head, what you want to do is take your set of leathers, all 4 of your leathers, and then put the stiffer ones on the outside and then put your softer ones on the inside. So it'll have a softer filling pocket with more structure on the outside. All right, so let's go ahead and start on the top string for the head. So I just have my regular sawable string here for the top string. This is going to be the exact same length that you're going to be using for like a mesh stick. So if you're doing a top string for the mesh stick or your sawable string for a mesh stick, it'd be the exact same length. No change here. So we're going to go through really any hole you want. I'm going to go through the second hole on this head specifically. And I already have a knot on one end, so I can just pull that all the way through. Now you're going to go into the plastic or into that first top string hole. You're going to leave a small loop. You're going to come through that loop. So it's just going to cross over itself. And then pull that. This is going to be tight here. Here I have my first leather. And then, like I said, we're doing a top string on this specific one. If you weren't doing a top string, then you can just kind of skip this section here. So here, like I said, remember you're going to have the rough side of the leather facing outwards. You're going to have the smooth side facing inwards, which is going to be touching the ball. And we have this little loop here that we already did. You want the loop to be small so it's not going to be, moving back and forth and getting loose over time really easily. But you don't want it so tight that you can't get a string through. So with that rough side facing outwards, you're going to take your sidewall string, your top string, you're going to go into that first or that leather loop, making sure to keep the smooth side facing inwards. And then this is essentially just going to sit up here in between our 2 top string knots. And then with that pulled over all the way, you're going to take your string and you're going to go back in through that sidewall hole, that top string hole. You're going to kind of come through the inside of that. And then there you can see we have our knot. So into the plastic, up into the loop, through the leather loop, and then back into the plastic and out through the loop that we leave over. And we're going to pull this nice and tight. And that's going to set up here. So if you need to transfer your traditional pocket to a different head, then this is really where the top string comes into play. We're going to go into the plastic on the next one, leaving or just coming through that loop that we're going to leave over. Once again, nice and tight. This is going to go back in through that leather loop at the top, all the way through, and then back into the plastic and through this loop that we leave. We're going to have this pulled nice and tight as well. Same thing as if you were doing a mesh stick. You want the top string to be as tight as possible. So there we go. Okay, so after you're done with that last leather, you're going to go back and make sure that all these are nice and tied up at the top, as well as the string that spans across is nice and tight, and they are. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and go out and through that that second sidewall hole, just mirroring what we did on the first side. And we're going to tie a knot to the outside. And so that should be nice and tight. And then there we have our top string for our traditional pocket.